Good afternoon. This is a press statement concerning the projected aftermath of a possible uncovering of Jubril Aminu Al-Sudani. Ladies and gentlemen of the press, as a preamble and backdrop to my discussion, let me ask the question: can Atiku be declared a non-citizen of Nigeria? Emphatically not. This is because even Jada, now in Nasarawa State, if it were to have been located within the British Cameroon by 1946, when Atiku was born, by virtue of the 1963 Constitution and the citizenship update of the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, he became a bona fide Nigerian citizen by birth on October 1st, 1960. And should peradventure there is a miscarriage of justice in the matter of Atiku's citizenship, there would perhaps be an intense cacophonous debate on the social media among Nigeria's elites, a non-committal and silent disdain by the educated poor, and the complete nonchalance of ignorance by the remaining majority of Nigerians. Nigerians will become normal. They will continue to live their lives normally with the hope of a better tomorrow, inshallah. Post-election attitudes of Nigerians has been well captured in the Nigerian Vanguard publication of Wednesday, 17th of April 2019, titled "Nigeria Will Not Survive the 2019 Elections" by Femi Aribisala, in which the author wrote, and I quote, "Today, the silence in the Nigerian political space is deafening. Just look back to 2015 and before, when there was vibrant debate about almost everything under the sun. But now, it is Sudan lose. We just had an election that was no election and more of selection. It was even more a mini civil war, characterized by killings, voter suppression and intimidation, ballot snatching, and falsification of results." Femi Aribisala even went on to make an obvious observation of Nigerians' attitudinal response to this travesty called an election by writing, and I quote, "But in spite of the bogus outcome of the elections, nobody is fighting anymore. Nobody is burning tires today or demonstrating in the streets. Instead, people are watching and waiting to see what will happen." End of quote. Aribisala further supports his observation of Nigerians' attitude to the elections by suggesting, and I quote, "Surely this cannot be the end of the matter." End of quote. And permit me to surmise that winners are not jubilating and losers are not venting. My question is this: could the ominous silence throughout Nigeria over the fallout from the 2019 elections be an airy calm before the raging storm, especially taking into cognizance the easy trigger and numerous flashpoints of Nigeria's organized terrorism, inter-ethnic violence, pervasive criminality of thuggery and kidnapping for ransom, and all this with utter disregard for life and property that exists across the country. Now, should the identity allegation against President Muhammadu Buhari be true, Without a seamless exit strategy of the northern oligarchy and the presidential cabal from digging in on the fostering and imposing of an impostor, Jubril Aminu Al-Sudani, on Nigeria as president, I dare to say that there will be political, economic, and social turmoil and upheavals in the country. Also, we need to look at the evidence of history concerning the use of the power of incumbency. Evidence of history reminds us that even in a seemingly democratic election, the power of incumbency can be overwhelmingly and ruthlessly employed to tenaciously hold on to power, regardless of the popular wishes of the people. In contrast to President Goodluck Jonathan's self-restraints of not invoking the power and instruments of incumbency to deny his opponent the ascendancy to the presidency in 2015, what we have witnessed in 2019 has been a full display of the use of the power of incumbency to plan and misdirect Nigeria's presidential election results. And this is what has put Nigeria in an election quandary today. Now, envisaging a possible fallout for the identity of Muhammadu Buhari being in actual fact Jubril Al-Sudani, we need to consider how to plan ahead. In general, thinking and planning ahead in every situation of human endeavor is always a virtue. Reacting after the facts can be fully catastrophic, especially when human lives may be compromised or may be in serious jeopardy. For example, for the avoidance of disaster related to occupational and safety hazards, we have building codes which are enforced and regularly updated to meet regulatory standards. The goal is to anticipate and prevent possible structural or functional deficiencies that could result in fatal accidents of health hazards. Similarly, crowd control experts are deployed to supervise large crowds in the orderly conduct of persons to prevent overcrowding and sudden stampedes that may lead to fatal casualties. Also, contingencies are made for incidental cases of suffocation, heat exhaustion, heat stroke, and the eruption of violence. Let me say that as we consider the alleged fraudulent identity of the current occupant of Aso Rock Villa as the President of Nigeria, what contingency plans are in place to deal with the spontaneous public reactions and the aftermath of the evidentiary proof that Buhari is in reality Jubril Aminu Al-Sudani? Anticipatory public reactions to the identity of Muhammadu Buhari. We as a nation must strategically anticipate as well as plan for the possible scenarios, actions, and reactions that may ensue in the event that the occupant of Aso Rock Villa is authoritatively identified as an impostor of President Muhammadu Buhari. However, it should be expected that the beneficiaries of the present national political status quo would engage in turbulent reactions, there would be the irresistible temptation to flex and exert the power of incumbency to hold on to power by all means. Now, what are the expected fallouts from the identity of President Muhammadu Buhari being Jubril Aminu Al-Sudani? I have identified 4 major fallouts. 1. Concerning Nigeria's security forces and allied agencies. 2. Concerning Boko Haram terrorists and nomadic killer herdsmen militias. And 3. Civil disobedience and ethnic militancy. And lastly, but not the least, an intense agitation and planning for Nigeria's breakup. The first casualty of the fallout of a Jubril Aminu Al-Sudani exposition will be the Nigeria security forces and allied agencies. With the architecture of Nigeria security forces and allied agencies already skewed geographically, ethnically, fraternally, and religion-wise in favor of the incumbent, one would expect an unprecedented, deliberate, and heightened assault against Nigeria's constitution and citizens' human rights by the military, police, Department of State Security, EFCC, and other security establishments. And more importantly, the empowerment of the so-called repentant and rehabilitated ex-Boko Haram fighters by integrating them into the services of the Nigerian combat armed forces, as well as policing Nigeria's public safety, will further exacerbate the situation by fracturing and undermining the ability of the security forces to maintain peace, law, and order in a post-Jubril Aminu Al-Sudani exposition. Secondly, Boko Haram terrorists and nomadic killer herdsmen militias. As for Boko Haram terrorists and nomadic killer herdsmen militias, these two have been named among the world's 5 most notorious terrorist organizations. And with the recent loss of ISIS Caliphate territories in Syria and Iraq, these Nigeria's homegrown terrorist organizations are likely to assimilate ISIS, transform and assume larger roles in Nigeria and in global terrorism. The imminent change of guard at the presidency as a result of uncovering Jubril Aminu Al-Sudani may become an explosive trigger for these terrorist organizations to go on a rampage of bloodletting, killing of men, women, and children. It would also unleash the fury of the killer herdsmen militia towards the wanton murder of indigenous populations across Nigeria, with the forceful occupation of their ancestral lands in a scorched earth manner. And more specifically, that killer herdsmen militias from the north, after rampaging the Middle Belt, will descend across the Niger River to inflict hell on the southwest and southeast should be a foregone conclusion. Thirdly, the third fallout, the civil disobedience and ethnic militancy. In a paroxysmal reaction to Nigeria's security forces' unrestrained, brigandine, and vicious clampdown on citizens' human rights, numerous Nigerian civil society organizations may coalesce into pockets of civil resistance to frustrate the establishment in massive protests and civil disobedience. A sympathetic appeal to global human rights organizations should be expected, especially if local human rights abuses are well documented and articulated to the international community. Furthermore, the widespread breakdown of the rule of law in the land will likely trigger the introduction of ethnic defense groups, with the escalation of some of these groups into the much feared scenario of warlordism, particularly in the impoverished parts of the northern states and Lagos. The temptation for Lagos to seek a Hong Kong-like status using well-paid foreign mercenaries is an option that must never be ignored. Powered by Chinese interest and illicit money, the reactivation of enclaves of the warlords in the Osun State for the control of the gold mining in the outskirts of Ilesha will become a useful template for the illegal mining operations in Zamfara, Plateau, Taraba, Adamawa, and other states. In the lower Niger River area and the southeast, a renewed vigor of agitation by the indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB, should be expected. While the South-South militancy against upstream oil exploration and crude oil extraction will metamorphose into an escalation of past militancy operations. Fourthly and lastly, intense agitation and planning for Nigeria's breakup. Reports has it that Nnamdi Kanu versus the Federal Republic of Nigeria has a case, a historic and landmark case, on the question of self-determination for Nigeria's indigenous Igbos, and that this case has been slated in the United Kingdom court for the 29th of April 2019. Under oath, the legality for demanding for separate countries out of Nigeria will be tested with the expository evaluation of all international and regional treaties and conventions to which Nigeria is signatory. Will be invoked to question Nigeria's 1914 amalgamation. As a result of the political chaos that will emanate from the fallout of a Jubril Aminu Al-Sudani fraud exposition, many self-determination and separatist entities in Nigeria will develop vested interest in the case between Nnamdi Kanu and the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So let us now conclude that it is very, very critical, very important that the entire international community must rise now before Nigeria's election fallout begins, and they must call out all parties to a negotiation table outside Nigeria without delay. Thank you. Any questions?